Hey everybody, welcome back to this month of Staffing Monthly, where we are taking that deep dive into technology. And as you know, technology is really the driving force behind not only the world, but certainly in the staffing industry today. We would not be able to do all of the things that are asked of us if we did not have technology, and as we've taken a deep look at some of the best staffing software technology out there, we've also taken a look at, VMSs and some automation tools. And today we're going to be talking about one that is more mainstream than I think most agencies realize. And I think they know it, but inherently have struggled with actually implementing it or maybe getting adoption. And that is the mobile application. And I'm actually thrilled. I've got a friend here with me today that is we're sort of from the same area in upstate New York, which was kind of neat. But this dude has been in technology for decades. I'm not going to say how long, because I think we're about the same age. And most recently, he's actually been in the staffing industry working with what has become known as the gold standard of mobile application, WorkN. And for those who've been following along, WorkN was acquired by Aviante because Aviante recognized the push for mobile. And I want to welcome Jodda Perry, he's had a couple hats. He was a partner and then the chief revenue officer with WorkN during the acquisition. And now he's actually the VP of enterprise sales, which I know we'll get into a little bit with Aviante. So Jodda, I just want to welcome you to the show today and just thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dan. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invitation. We're talking about a topic that is, of course, very near and dear to my heart. A lot of excitement around it, and this will be exciting.
I love it, man. And this is it. I've been saying this for a few years now, that mobile is the forefront. Like if you think about, obviously, consumers today, more job seekers look at jobs on their phone than on a desktop. And you look at, more people check their email on a mobile device than a desktop. And when you look at every major app that people use, their banking app, social media, everything is kind of done through a mobile app because it creates a better user experience. So you obviously partner with WorkN because you saw that and you guys had this great track record. And here's the dilemma that I see that I want to discuss today. The staffing industry has typically been known to be tech laggards. They typically adopt a little bit later than most other industries. And when it comes to mobile, there's this dichotomy, there's this challenge. It's like, how do I get my candidates to use it, download it, use it on their phone? How do I get my clients to use it? And I know that WorkN had a lot of challenges up front to figure that out. And then they cracked the code. Aviante saw that and said, hey, we want you to become part of us. So I want to talk about that today. So Jodda, what is the secret sauce? How does a staffing agency use a tool like WorkN, or now Aviante 24/7, but more importantly, how do they get their job seekers, candidates to actually download and use the app on the regular, and how do they get their clients to do the same?
Yeah. Well, that's the $1 million question, right? Not an easy, straightforward answer. First of all, it's really driven by the vision that the CEO or leadership has, and what are they ultimately trying to accomplish out of a mobile strategy, right? And so that's the very first thing that we want to uncover, right? What is your vision around mobile? Do you even have one? Do you need help creating a vision, right? And so those are just part of the consulting components that we go into these conversations with. Some might have a vision, that they want to have a, two-sided marketplace where they have clients interacting directly with the talent. That's one option. Another option would just be straight engagement with talent on the platform. And there's a lot of variations around that. It's also very specific to the industry ends. If we're talking healthcare, travel nursing might look very different from per diem nursing. Long-term assignments in professional staffing versus commercial staffing, which could be shift-based. Some could be short assignments, some could be long assignments. So there's a lot of variations in what that solution ultimately looks like for each staffing company. But it really comes down to a very clear, defined vision from the CEO of what they really want to accomplish with a mobile platform.
Okay, so that makes sense to me, and it should start from the top. And if you're going to roll it out the right way, there's got to be consistency. But let's put our CEO hat on for a second and ask the question, why even pursue this? You know,
Sure.
it's another tool, it's another workflow, it's another expense. Like, what are some of the big challenges that, let's say, small to middle market, and then I know enterprise is a different beast. Let's tackle those in two different pieces. Let's tackle small to mid market and then transition
Yeah.
to enterprise. That small to mid market agency, like, why would they even want to use a mobile app and try to incorporate this? Like, what are some of the problems it solves?
I think yeah, it's another good question, Dan. But I think it's kind of the same for the enterprise versus the small and mid market. I mean, it's the same
Really?
strategy. It's the same vision.
Okay.
It's look at where technology is going in the world today, and what are the new expectations that people have. And if you look at it, and we believe there's this consumerization model that's out there, where what I really mean is the expectation has changed. Some might even call it the Amazon effect, right?
Yeah.
Where Amazon has created this digital marketplace that has now made transacting with them faster, easier, more transparent. It's just simpler, right? And now you're seeing all other companies move that direction. And now it's just the expectation that finding work will be just as simple and easy, or should be as simple as easy as they transact and everything else. Like you said before, banking, right? Nobody really wants to go inside of a bank anymore these days. I mean, there's a few people. Maybe you're going to go in and get a mortgage and you want to meet somebody.
Yeah.
Um, you know, traveling airlines and hotels. No one's going to pick up the phone call and pick up a phone and call. They're going to do all of that online, right? Or through a mobile app. And so this is just the new expectation. And there's a lot of things that have been thrown out there, like, well, what about app fatigue, right? Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
And would that prohibit people from downloading an app? And I think the answer is yes and no, right? Yes, there is app fatigue that you have. If you're going out and you're buying tickets at StubHub, and all of a sudden you now start getting a lot of messages from, that vendor about other upcoming events, that's a distraction. And, maybe you want to take that app off of your phone, not to pick on StubHub, but similar idea, right? Social media, huge distraction. We all have it. But when you talk about things that are critical to your daily life, like banking, right? Work, right? Like, that's an everyday thing. And so you're not going to get rid of that app. You're going to keep that app because that keeps putting you back to work. That's something that becomes a part of a daily routine that you have. So you need to have that app. You need to have that solution. And it's served up. It's simple and it's easy. And so that's a big part of the why behind, staffing companies moving this direction, is really just making it simple and easy.
So that makes sense. And you hit on a couple things that I want to tackle. But first, I got to share that it's funny you mentioned maybe you want to go to a bank to actually meet someone if you're getting a mortgage. The last 3 mortgages that I've done, I literally worked with a mortgage loan officer at my credit union and had never met the guy. The best customer service I think I've ever experienced anywhere. And I kid you not, Jodda, I just happened to bump into this guy at a networking event 2 weeks ago for the first time. I literally was standing next to him and I saw that he worked for the credit union that I prefer. I leaned over to tell him how much I prefer the credit union. I was going to say, hey, there's this guy that works for your credit union that's absolutely amazing that I've never met. And it was the guy. And I was like, I feel really awkward saying that about you now that it's you. And he was, it was just kind of a funny happenstance. So like, I think maybe even we're, as consumers, we're moving away from that. Like, we're starting to be okay transacting, through platforms like a mobile application. And the first thing I'm going to go backwards, because I realize I think about mobile app
The key
fatigue.
thing there, though, is that you picked out a unique scenario, right? Which is, you're transacting. You have a job that you're trying to get done, which is to get your mortgage, right? Or I'm trying to get a job, right? And so that is a transaction that is set that we need to expedite.
Right.
There's things that happen outside of that, like a great experience, which could be the same thing as a recruiter reaching out to you saying, Dan, how was your experience on that job, right? We're not trying to replace all of the interactions, right? And in fact, if you can free up a recruiter's time to have those types of higher
Yeah.
value interactions, there's way more in value in that than saying, hey, you're going to start on Monday at 8 o'clock, get ready to go to work type thing. Like that, I can transact easily outside of having a conversation.
Yeah, so I agree with you there, and there's a whole other point that I want to dig into to make sure we cover. But going back to the app fatigue, you're right. You have to. I think people get app fatigue when the value of having or using the app on your phone does not match, the level that you're getting, right? Like if it's not there, then you start to get app fatigue. But if the value that you get out of the service, then you're not going to delete it, which is why when you ask people like, what are the most commonly used apps, you get banking apps because it's better than using the website. You get social media apps because it's better than using the mobile friendly websites on your phone. And you get games, mobile games.
Social media, right?
Yeah. And like, it's okay. Like, what's the value? And it's all different there. And I like the fact that with 24/7, you guys have added the change card. So not only are you basically letting people have super easy access to all their employment documents, and being able to see pay stubs and all of that stuff, and actually better user experience, updating information and all of that stuff. And I'm going to tease the last point you made. There's better connectivity on the software of the staffing agency through the mobile application than a mobile friendly website. But when you're doing all that, now you actually have the change card. That's a reason for the candidate to have it on their phone. Like if an agency is using WorkN 24/7 with Aviante's change card, it's all right there. Like, so that makes sense that they're actually, okay, this is a good user experience for your candidate. And then that last point I teased is that the mobile app, the way that these are built, they're built to better integrate with the ATS, with the software. And obviously, I know that you're more of a native integration with Aviante now, the way that it's been built now, but with the Bold platform. But mobile-friendly websites, they're not as well connected to any ATS out there. There's some integrations and there's some that are kind of bi-directional data syncs. I get that. But you still have to go through some intermediary portal that can sometimes be wonky and not provide the best user interface. So I feel like the mobile app creates better connectivity and user experience just because it almost gives the job seeker and the client, but the job seeker direct access in a way to what's going on in the software, the same software that the agency themselves is using, right? So that's probably more fundamentally technologically better, right?
Yeah, we early on we took the approach of, are we going to replace the ATS or are we going to partner with the ATS? And as a startup company, everybody was settled in on the ATS, and we weren't going to change that. And so we immediately took the approach of, yeah, you're right. That's the system of record. Keep the ATS, and let's now integrate all those workflows so that we can tie into what the recruiters are used to using, right? What your team, salespeople, and recruiters are used to using, which, by the way, helps with change management because you're not having to really learn a new tool completely. So that was really very helpful in the strategy that we took. Yes, we are very deeply integrated into Aviante Bold, super tight integration there, two-way, tremendous amount of work that goes into these ATS integrations, but we have been and always will remain ATS agnostic. We've got a number of integrations out there, homegrown ATSs all the way through some of the other larger ATS systems out there. So we're a heavy API system, and so the one thing that we're talking about is this online staffing piece where we're pushing jobs out, right? And so maybe the ATS is doing the matching, or maybe the WorkN platform is doing the matching, distributing to the talent based on maybe it's geolocation, availability, skill set, right? Perhaps there's preferences. So there's a variety of ways of matching and pushing that out. And that's the online staffing piece. The other piece that we realized early on was that it's not just about online staffing. There's other component to it, which, it's the total talent enablement piece. And that drives the candidate experience. So when they're interacting with your app, are they only doing online staffing? Or like you said, can I access pay stubs? Can I use my change card, right? Do I have other third-party technologies? Maybe it's engagement platforms, maybe it's referral solutions. It could be websites, it could be training. And this is where you kind of choose your own journey as a staffing firm. And it's, what do you want that experience to look like? What's the greatest value that you can bring back to your candidates based on your particular business, right? Timekeeping could be integrated with it, or maybe you don't use timekeeping because you have wall clock. So
Right.
this is really about the understanding, and again, back to the consulting of, what do you want to ultimately accomplish when you're delivering this mobile experience, this app experience?
Okay, so one last question that I want to dig into before we move into some more of the enterprise stuff. I know you said that they're very similarly aligned, but I want to push on that a little bit, because from my experience, enterprise, you sort of got to operate a little bit differently. You got a little bit different strategic initiatives. So, but from that, you said it's kind of choose your own journey, which I love that. So you can kind of map it to what you want. But let's just say an agency wanted to use it for job board, mobile job board, have it out there, or recruiting, or basically applying and onboarding and all of that stuff. So how seamless is that process? Just bear with me on this. Let's say a candidate or a job seeker finds a job that an agency is posting, and then they go to apply to that job, and they do it through the mobile application, right? They download the app, they create the profile, and then can they access all of the application documents and all the paperwork through the mobile application? And is it going to set them up to be an eligible employee to be vetted or scheduled for an interview by the recruiter? Like, is that what we're talking about? Is it that robust?
100% can be as automated as you want it to be, really. And, let's just look at Aviante as an example, right? So we have the mobile job board, so talent can download the app. Of course, there's a whole marketing component too, which is about attracting the talent to your business.
Right.
So where do they find your app, right? And so it could be billboards, it could be posters on the job site, it could certainly be your website, it could be social media using QR codes, whatever it might be. That's sort of your lure and attraction to bring talent to work for you, kind of following that consumerization model. And I always look at Uber. Is Uber out there calling, texting, emailing people and asking them to sign up? No, they've created this engine to attract people, right?
Yeah.
And people just go there now to sign up, and they're never talking to anybody. Same idea. So I can go out, I can download the app, I can see the job board, I can see jobs, I can go through this short apply process. And then it's about, when do you want to launch your onboarding documents? What is that going to contain? What is your staffing company? What are your steps and processes to move the talent through that journey that you're creating? And so you can automate as much as you want, or you can interject that recruiter for maybe high touch at certain point, right? So there's a lot of variables that can go into it. What we're ultimately looking to build is that true touchless end-to-end capability, where talent can go in, find a job, go through the onboarding. Perhaps you have the Pixel engagement platform guiding you through, some Q&A, maybe knockout questions, some AI tied into it. That's just giving you an elevated experience in your journey. And then it gets to, the point where, do you need to have an interview, right? Or what are your steps? And so that's, again, it's about building our tech so that we can follow that full journey, but then consulting with the staffing firm to determine, okay, what is your process? What is the experience as you've defined it, as you vision it, that you want to enable inside of that mobile app?
So a couple things there that I want to dig into before we move on to enterprise now, because you just opened up my mind here. It sounds like a lot. And I've been through implementations and customizations and whatnot. So my big question, simple question is, how hard is it? Like, if I'm an agency and I'm like, man, Jodda, here's my workflow. Like, how hard is it to really, set up, build, implement, like just get it going? Like, is it an arduous journey, or is it fairly simple and straightforward, and can it be rolled out quickly?
Well, it's a wide open question. If you've got a homegrown system, you're writing to the APIs, it's a little bit more difficult than if you have an existing ATS that we're integrated with, right? And so that's one area of complexity that can be simplified, or may just take a little bit longer, right? So that whole the initial process is what is your existing tech stack? What are you willing to change in that tech stack based on what you want as your result? What's your vision that you want to have within your mobile experience? Those tend to be the easier parts of the
Okay.
whole journey. The more challenging part is the execution and the follow through on the platform. And our CEO Rishabh came up with a term. I believe he came up with it at our Connect conference. ROI equals ROI, and that's your return on investment is directly correlated with your rate of involvement.
Right.
Right. So that's a given. I think that's pretty obvious. There's an analogy, and I wish I came up with it. I didn't, but I'm going to use it.
Perfect.
And I think this applies incredibly well to what we're trying to accomplish. But if you look at any adoption of technology, you can really apply it there. And the analogy is, I want to be healthy and I want to get in shape. So I go and buy a gym membership. Okay. A gym membership's not going to just automatically translate into waking up the next day, having a six pack and big muscles and great shape.
Yeah. I'm living proof of that. Thanks for that, Jodda.
Sorry, me too. I got to put the work in. You got to put the work in to get to that place. And it's not a week or 2 weeks or a month, right? It's maybe not even 90 days before you see any return on that health membership that you have. So
Right.
you've got to put in that level of effort. The next analogy is this is change management, right? And change management is not easy. If it was, like, adopting technology would be simple, right? But this is you're teaching new things. So it's like I would walk into the gym and I want to do Pilates. I've never used a Pilates machine before, and it's incredibly intimidating and scares me. And so I still haven't gotten on a Pilates machine, but I know it's a great device to get really strong results out of it, right? Really build that core. But I'm intimidated by it. And so I need a lot of instruction. I need to be told and taught what to do. And the same thing with our technology, right? It's new. It's new to the recruiters. They don't necessarily know exactly how to use the tools. They may not even know what they're trying to get out of the tools. So that's got to be communicated down to them as well. And so just the change management and the teaching and the education on how to use the tool is really important. And then the last component, if I want to be really healthy, but I'm snacking on potato chips at midnight, right? That's detrimental to getting to that final point of being really healthy. Well, look at your snack foods and your cheating as your data. If you have poor data, then you're not going to get the results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
You've got to have good, solid, clean data. You've got to be committed to cleaning up your data. You've got to be committed to learning how to use the tool, right? And then you just got to jump in and plug away at it. And it's not an overnight change that you're going to see. And so I think that parallels very, very nicely with all technology, but specifically, it's a very tight parallel to what we're trying to accomplish with releasing new technology in the industry, this mobile app And I call it a strategy, right? It's a mobile app platform, but it's really about the strategy of how do you approach the internal adoption and change management within your organization.
So, and this will be the segue into the enterprise level of the industry, but you've obviously done so many of these implementations. You've worked with so many different staffing agencies that have different workflows and whatnot, and you've clearly recognized the importance of change management through the process. Does WorkN or now Aviante, do they have like a playbook or a roadmap or just something that would fall in the guise of like client success that they can say, hey, here's the technology, here's how we're going to configure it, but this is really what you need to be thinking about, enterprise leader, if you will, to make sure that the implementation goes the right way, the adoption goes the right way, and then comprehension and mastery of the tool, goes and gets you the results that you want. Like, do you have that sort of roadmap or whatnot that you can provide during the process?
Yeah, we've got the playbook, and it's like an NFL playbook, right? You've got 16 different variations of it that you have, and so it's really about figuring out which playbook to use based off of the scenario and the desired outcomes that you want to have.
Right.
And so that's really the step number one, is to the CEO and really the executive leadership. What is your playbook? What do you want to ultimately accomplish? We take that, we're going to be measuring against your results measured against what you're trying to accomplish. And, I've learned through my journey of selling new technology that, if I go through an engagement and I don't have a well-defined playbook to provide my implementation team, the CEO probably doesn't have a well-defined playbook either of what they're ultimately trying to achieve as the outcome. So it's my job to help them identify what that vision and that desired outcome is. And then there's a series of steps that are really important that are part of the process, and that is sort of this top down. So CEO says, this is the playbook, this is what we want to achieve is the outcome. Executive leadership bought in, right? And so this is also really important. It's cross-functional, right? Like, I've made the mistake of selling just the CIO and let that person drive the decision. And that never ends well, because if I don't have operational buy-in, then we're not going to have a good outcome, right? And operational buy-in is key, right? They're the ones who are going to ultimately execute and deliver on that solution.
Yeah.
So as you go down that process, it's right. So now in the enterprise, you've got your CEO, you've got your executive leadership. Well, then that executive leadership, this is what we're doing, why we're doing it. This is the importance, and these are the expectations that we have. And those need to then be delivered out to the branch managers, right? Now, the branch managers are the doers. They're the ones who are actually going to be executing on this strategy.
Yeah.
Right. And so they need to be sold, that they need to have the clear vision. They need to know how to execute on this, because they're the ones who are ultimately going to be teaching the recruiters and the sales reps how to use the technology and ultimately be accountable for it. So that's really the key, is to make sure that you get down the chain of command to the people who are actually going to be executing on, this new technology, and making sure that, we're having follow through on it, which is key. And then the next big thing that we look at as we go into engagements is, what does success look like for you, and how are we going to measure that? And so then we start talking about benchmarking. What are the metrics that you want to move, right? Because this technology can cover a lot of 30 different metrics, right? But you can't accomplish all 30 at once. So what are the top 3, 4, 5 that you really want to go after? Do I want to recruit? Do I want to, drive speed to fill? Am I more interested in a greater talent journey and experience and reduce drop off? Am I going in and really trying to change the market with flex work? And now I'm being really consultative and innovative to my customers, right? So all of those things all come into play, trying to figure out, what are the benchmarks, what are the metrics that we're trying to move, and then how are we going to measure against those? And so that's an area where, again, having good, solid foundation metrics of, what does good look like? What does the end game ultimately look like for you? That looks like success. And as we're configuring and implementing, right, we're constantly driving towards those items that were defined.
So that
long answer for you.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And so, and just to make sure that I'm not burying the lead here, I want to just ask the very pointed question of why would an enterprise, the biggest of the big, the huge staffing agencies of our industry, why would they want to either improve or even adopt a mobile first strategy right now? Like what's the reasoning that they might want to make that investment or that shift in kind of a weird market?
Well, if you look at a weird market, we're just cyclical. There's always weird markets.
Yeah.
Which always means there's never a good time to do this. Right? And what I always say, and what I always think is, when you are in a down market, that is the best time to make those changes, because when you're in an up market, you want to not go through change management at that point. You want to be completed and ready to execute on that strategy. But the real why enterprise, or anybody for that matter, should really be considering this, is, going right back to the very first thing we talked about, the Amazon effect and the consumerization concept, right? There are new expectations out there with your talent and how they want to interact and engage with you. And if you're not providing them with a great journey and a great experience, somebody else is, right? And so if somebody else is, there's a chance you're going to lose that worker. We talk about the race to own the mobile phone, right? Kind of going back to the app itself. How many mobile apps, work apps, are you going to have on your phone? If you consistently get work from one or two companies, that's it. That's all you need. You don't need a third.
Right.
And so it's an opportunity today to really get your app, your footprint on what I would call that sacred real estate, which is your mobile device that is only going to have a couple of work apps on it. And so that's really a key driver behind it. Additionally, of course, what like any technology, it's delivering ROI, right? Like the metrics and the just business improvement processes are massive, right? Where a recruiter who can be, whether it's gross profit that you're measuring or talent on assignment, right? Can we increase that exponentially? Can we really drive that recruiter productivity up much higher, which then helps you to maybe reduce your headcount as a staffing firm? You don't need as many recruiters, or you just take the ones that you have and you make them more productive.
Wow. Did you just say that on the air?
Not replacing, but reallocating, reutilizing that talent, right? And so that is a really big. Another one might be reducing your real estate footprint. Like, that's a massive ROI, right? How many offices does Uber have around the world? Yet, where do they operate? Right. And so they're able to have this extended reach way beyond a brick and mortar type structure.
So I agree with that. And I see technology. So I believe in the recruiting industry that the recruiting agency that has the best recruiters, that can form the best relationships with best intuition of screening the best talent and placing it with the best clients, like that's the agency that's going to win. And from my experience over the last nearly 20 years, I've seen that it's all of the SOPs and all of the things that have to get done just to support that very simple process of introducing a good person to a good company. It's all of those nuanced little details that actually wear down the recruiter's ability to perform at a really high level. So I see technology as alleviating all those nuanced things to let the recruiter, to enable the recruiter to focus on doing more. So I know that what you were saying, I get it, that, companies analyze the workforce optimization and all of that. How I look at it is it's an increase of capacity. right? Because even though it's a weird economy right now, there's still demand. There's opportunities to grow market share by taking, share from your competitors. So it's like, if I can actually let my recruiters work on more orders and get them better at the orders they're working on by giving them this technology, you're going to get the ROI out of the technology or the capacity gains, right? Like that's the way I see it. You're almost like teaching them how to use the hammer. So like that's my approach to technology. And I think that I got to believe enterprise is looking at it that way too, right? Because and last thing I'll say is like, because no one's filling 100% of their orders, right? So if you could provide a tool that increases the capacity and the efficiency of the human being recruiter, then you can actually fill maybe a few points more of your orders. If you're filling 70 and you can fill 75, like how much gain are you getting out of that extra 5% filled orders? How much more customer satisfaction are you getting by sending those 1 or 2, 3, 4 more people to your clients? Like it's like that. I think that's the game, right?
100%. You got to be nimble. Another big piece, is a lot of companies are afraid to introduce this technology to their customers, right? And it's a huge opportunity.
Huge.
Because it's like when I'm at the grocery store, right? Do I want to stand in a line or do I want to go to the self-service area, right? And I always go through the self-service because I can get through faster.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm in more control. Like it's just speedier to get through that way. And it's the same idea, right? Like it's not every customer wants to engage with you through technology. They want to pick up the phone and they want to talk to Dan.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm
not
never change that. But then you have somebody else who's like, I don't care if I talk to Dan or not. I just want this done. I want it out quickly. It should be simple and easy, and I shouldn't have to worry about it. And I want to know that I'm getting really good quality, right? Like that's why I'm coming to you, Dan, is to get good quality. But if Dan could go ahead and set up, a control group of talent for that particular customer, where they can go in and they can tap that talent and they can easily hire 10 people without having to talk to somebody every day or every time they need those 10 people, why would you not do that? Like now that recruiter productivity has just gone up, significantly, and not having to deal with the individual transactions, which are easily automated. But that's not to eliminate that engagement. I still should pick up. How are we delivering? How are we performing for you? Yeah. But that's a whole different level of conversation you're having. That's frankly, it's a lot more powerful and beneficial. And I really believe the future of recruiters is to be a lot more consultative, with their customers, and it's teaching them new movements, new approaches, new strategies of how to interact with your clients.
So I love that. And I think that is a good spot to kind of wrap up and summarize that there is an element of change management that needs to take place, but this technology it's infiltrating your users, your job seekers, your candidates, your employees, your clients. Like they're all doing this in other areas, and other agencies are adopting this. It's becoming mainstream within the staffing industry. So if you're not on board with this, you're going to lose that race to that type of user experience. So before we have you share some contact information, is there any parting shot? Is there anything that you were like, I just want to say this so people can hear it about mobile first strategy? Anything you want to share as a parting shot?
What I would really just say is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and we're just in the typical technology adoption curve, right? The innovators are already out there. We're getting through that early adopter phase. We're starting to move into the early, middle adopters, right? And so it's really just the opportunity. You don't want to be a laggard in this particular space.
Not at all.
Don't want to be the last ones to move. We've all seen and heard the analogies of, Blockbuster thought they had, market captured, and look what happened, right? Sony Walkman, 80% of the market, and 1 and 2 years, iTunes just takes them out, right? And so I'm not saying that that's going to necessarily happen to the staffing industry, but it is absolutely game changing, and there's no reason to wait any longer. It's the longer you wait, because the benefits that you start to see are like the gym. It's not 3 months, maybe it's 6 months. You're really starting to see, I've got some muscles coming on and I can see the outline of a six pack, right?
Yeah.
It takes a while, right? For you
Yeah.
to really see the benefits of the solution. So there's no reason to really wait.
I agree. People think that, they delay the response, but ultimately all you're doing is you're delaying the decision, and you're going to make that decision at some point. So all you're really doing is delaying the results that you're going to get. And at that point, you always got to consider ROI, return on investment, but you also, if you're going to delay the decision and risk putting yourself in a competitive disadvantage with the rest of the market, you do also have to actually evaluate the COI, the cost of inaction, right? What happens to me today if I wait on this and I don't get out in front of the competition and I push those results? I got to go through that 90 days. I got to go through the change management. I got to get adoption and comprehension and mastery and I got to get all that stuff anyway. Whether I start today or I start 6 months from now, you're always going to have the first part of it, of the journey, but what you're actually really delaying is actually the game. And that's what people, I think, need to really take into consideration there.
Kind of like coming out with a website in the early 2000s, right? Like some people are like, I don't need to have a website. Why do I need to have a website? Right now, tell me a staffing company that doesn't have a website.
Tell me somebody that will do business with someone if they don't have a website. Like it's your badge of legitimacy. I kid you not, Jodda. I had my in-laws in town this past weekend, and they had to board a pet, and everyone was filled up. It's a busy touristy area, and she's like, I literally had like 3 options. 2 of them didn't have websites, and she's like, so I didn't even call. And she's like, and it's weird because like pet boarding doesn't need to be technologically sophisticated, so a website shouldn't be a prerequisite. But I just felt like I don't want to trust my pet with someone that can't have a website. So and that was it. And I'm like, I'm the same way,
Yeah, and if you're not sitting at home, you're out wherever you are, you want to do that off your mobile phone. If they have an app, right, that's even way more easier because the process and the flows and the steps become a lot more simplified. So
yeah. And frankly, from a sales perspective, I know you'll appreciate the salesperson that walks into the client and they're like, why should I choose you? And they're like, look at the technology offering that I offer to my users. Like, you should partner with the agency that's going to give you the best access to talent. So put yourself in the shoes of talent, walk in the shoes of talent, like Rishabh said a year ago, and tell me, which agency would you rather partner with? Me with all of my offerings that cater to talent, or any other agency that doesn't have half this?
yep.
And that's it. It becomes a value sell at that point. So
That's the lowest hanging fruit right there, right? Just teach your salespeople how to sell with your technology as a differentiator.
Yeah.
And then be consultative. What problems are we trying to solve for you? Right.
100%, man. So, dude, this is awesome. I'm grateful for your time and your knowledge in this space. I know you've been on this journey. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have more questions than we could get into. So if they want to follow up with you and they want to learn more about WorkN, mobile first strategy, or how to implement, or maybe they already have and they just want to learn how to get the most out of it, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, best way to get in touch with me, certainly visit our website, workin.com or aviante.com. Both of them will guide you to our team. My direct email address is my first name dot last name at aviante.com. So
we'll get that on page.
Yeah, you got on the page? Beautiful.
We'll get it on page, yeah.
Awesome. You're the man.
Well, cool, man. I'm grateful for your time here. We'll get all that set up on page, and hopefully you can lead this change in this industry and have mobile first take shape. I appreciate you.
Take it on. Thanks, Dan, for having me. I appreciate it.